Why don't you go see your boyfriend?
Yeah, he got a nice room. He won't have it long. He left a call for 7 a.m.
Listen properly.
Can you please look up this site?
See if we can figure out something.
Hi. I'm back a bit later than I said I would be. Oh, my on-air sign isn't on. Whoopsie daisy. I'll do that in a minute. But we're not going to be able to catch up with that much today. I wanted to try anyway, though, so that we're not crazy behind tomorrow. But we've missed about more than 2 hours. So that's a bit tricky. I did also just think of doing like a normal court stream for a bit because my brain is quite tired. But we might as well move through these DNA experts quickly.
Further, thank you.
Witness may step down.
You want to move your approach before the next witness?
Yes.
Oh, we can skip these. That's at least one upside of being ahead.
I'll be with you. Shake a leg. And shake a leg for a minute. I need to attend to something on my computer. I'll be with you in one moment. Attend to something on my computer. I'll be with you in one moment.
Commonwealth would call Mark McDonald.
Hey, Lilith.
You solemnly swear the testimony and evidence which will be brought to the jury in the matter now and will come up and are the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you.
Okay, appreciate it.
You may proceed.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Could you please tell the jury your first and last name and please spell your last name for the record?
I will. Mark MacDonald, last name MacDonald.
And how old are you, sir?
54.
Where do you live? What city?
Pembroke, Mass.
And how long have you lived there?
55. Sorry. I cheated.
You're 55 years
Yeah,
old?
55.
Okay. And you live in Pembroke?
I do.
How long have you lived in Pembroke?
5 years.
And where do you work?
Currently in Pembroke.
Okay. And what kind of work do you do?
Hi. I don't know if we did this guy already. He doesn't look familiar.
Fire sprinkler testing,
How long have you done that kind of work?
20 years plus.
Do you work for a particular company?
I do. Mass code compliance.
And so generally you refer to that as MCC.
It is.
Did you know Michael Ricci Sr.?
I did.
How did you know Michael Ricci?
I've known him since we've been 4 years old.
And where did the two of you grow up?
In Hyde Park. We're a couple doors down from each other.
Did you have a close relationship with him?
Extremely.
How would you characterize your relationship with him?
He was my brother.
And you said you knew each other since you were 4. Did you grow up together as teenagers?
We did. We went all the way up into the high school years. And after high school, we split up a little bit when he went into the military and I went to the military. It was 2 different assignments, but we stayed very close and during the military. And then after the military, we re-engaged, and not too long after that, he moved to the South Shore.
Okay.
And we were back together.
And for a period of time, did the two of you work together?
Yes.
And what type of business did you work with Michael Ricci?
We were doing fire sprinkler inspections and testing.
Did you know him to work another job at some point?
Boston Fire Department, yes.
Do you know how long he had been at the fire department?
Over 20 years, I believe.
And so when he would work with you doing the fire sprinkler work, was that a part-time job?
Yes, it was depending on his shift. They rotate shifts, but yeah, most of the time it was whatever days he wasn't working and there was no other obligations, he would come in and work with us.
And were you familiar with Michael Ricci's family?
Yes.
And how many kids did he have?
3 total, but 2 of them were his and 1 was adopted.
And did you have any special connection to one of his children?
Goddaughter. And his daughter, Sophia, was my goddaughter.
Okay.
And all 3 of them, they were very close to me. They call me Uncle Mac.
Okay. But as far as Sophia goes, you were actually her official godfather.
Yes.
Now, were you familiar with Michael's wife?
Yes.
And did you know her when they kind of started dating, or were you around when they got together?
Yeah, I was. That was kind of when Mike was working another job, just getting on to the Boston Fire Department, I think, is when they first met. So he was in transition, doing his probation at the fire department when they first met. But then after the fact, yeah, I did. That's when we kind of came back together, when his schedule got more even. And then from then on, yes.
And were you familiar when they got married, Michael and Christine?
Yes, but I was not at the wedding. That's right after September 11th. And I went to a different job overseas.
And as far as your work with Michael, when did he come and work for you at MCC?
We both worked together for another company for probably 10 years. And then as that guy was retiring, he kind of asked and suggested I started my own, which I did. And Mike came along with me. So Mike was probably with me in my role as owning the company for probably about 10, 12 years.
And then at some point, did you step back from your role as owner from the company?
Just recently, actually, I did. I dissolved it after what happened with Mike and a lot of the...
Objection, Your Honor.
All right.
Move to strike.
I'll strike it. It's not relevant. You recently dissolved the company. Next question.
When you worked with Michael Ricci, or when he worked for you, I should say, did you see him on a regular basis? If he was working, did you see him that day?
I did. It was usually 3 to 5 days a week.
And did you guys have kind of a home base or a shop that kind of business started out of for the day?
Yes, we ended up for years and years over in Pembroke. It was a small shop that was an upstairs, downstairs with a big shop downstairs.
And at some point in your personal and your working relationship with Michael, did you observe a change in your relationship with him?
Yes,
Was there a point where you didn't see him as often?
yes.
Was that on a personal level or a professional level or both?
I believe it was, it's kind of hard to say. We're still best friends. It's just that I think business-wise, he went in a different direction. He needed to work on some things, he
Okay.
said.
Did you notice a change in his behavior at work when he was working for you?
Yes.
What were your observations of him before the change? What type of worker was he?
He was great. He was one of the best guys we've. I mean, everybody wanted to be with him, and he was a great worker. And he was always fun to be around. And it changed near the end. It changed. He was not happy.
Well, let me ask you
Objection,
some
Your Honor.
questions.
Move to strike.
Yep, stick to your observations. I'll strike the last.
When you would work with Michael, would you guys hang out after work sometimes?
Sometimes, yep. We would.
How frequently would you go out after work?
If it worked out and everybody was back to the shop in time on a Thursday, we would get together, and it was kind of our informal session of complaining about everything and maintaining all the tools and having a beer or two or order a pizza and make it at the shop.
Okay, and was that generally kind of a once a week thing or multiple days?
It would usually be once a week. It was Thursday because we pretty busy schedule, and of course his schedule was different than ours, so it was hard.
And did you notice after a period of time, Michael not coming to what you called Thirsty Thursdays?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, he all around, he was just not around as much. Yes.
Would he come in for work and then just leave?
Yep, he would go directly home.
Did you have any issues with him as his supervisor with his work?
None.
How about with coming into work on time or coming into work on his scheduled days?
He was actually coming in on time, doing fine until maybe about 6 months before he stopped working with us. He was coming in a little bit late or not as reliable about coming in. Even on the days that he was scheduled to come in, there was a conflict of interest or scheduling.
Okay. And when you noticed this change in his behavior, did you notice any physical changes as well?
Yeah.
What did you observe of Michael specifically physically?
Okay, physically, he looked like he didn't look good. In other words, he didn't look like the Mike I knew when everybody knew, to the point where we'd ask, is everything okay? Or pull him aside, is everything all right? Because he had scratches a lot on his face, a lot. He had a fat lip. He had a bleeding nose. One time we thought his nose was broken. We asked him if everything was all right, something you want to talk about.
Okay.
Objection,
And-
Your Honor. Could be heard sidebar.
Yes.
Mr. McDonald, do you recall when Michael stopped going out with you and the other members of the crew after work?
Yes, it was probably 2019, I believe, in that area.
Any sense of whether it was early on in 2019 or later in the year?
I remember him coming in. It was near, I believe, their anniversary,
Do you know when their anniversary is?
September, and early September.
And when you observed these changes in Michael's physical appearance, do you recall when that was in relation to when he stopped going out with the group?
He may have stopped going out with us a little bit before that as well. He was becoming more quiet, and for lack of a better word, when the guys talked, we didn't know how to approach him.
Why don't we have the next question, please?
In that fall or so of 2019, did you know Michael to be going to AA at that time?
It was around the fall, yes. He started to go to a program. He said he was going to.
Not what he said, but just your knowledge of whether he was
did for sure.
attending.
We had GPS in the trucks. I know for a fact where he was going, yeah. He went to AA and counseling,
And at that time, you had allowed him to use a work truck.
100%.
And was he allowed to take that work truck home with him?
It was because he would use it for emergency service as well. If there was an emergency service call, he could use that truck to go to the call.
Okay. And during the same time period of the AA and not going out, is that the same time period when you made these observations of his physical appearance?
It is.
And do you recall when Michael stopped working for you completely?
Yes, it was probably 2 months after our conversation near his anniversary. So September, October, November, somewhere in that area. October, November, maybe.
And after he stopped working for the company, did he still have access to the vehicle that you allowed him to use?
I let him use the truck, and said he was looking for another vehicle, another ride. So I let him have access to the vehicle in case he could get a day off and come work with us, and obviously to help him get back and forth until he gets a new vehicle.
Did you allow him access to the vehicle so he could go do side jobs or other work
No,
with fire sprinkler repair?
no, there was no side jobs. It's under my license.
So in regards to that type of work, the fire sprinkler repair work, your company is properly licensed to do that?
It is.
And how about your employees? Are each and every employee licensed, or are they under your license?
They're under my license, and I'm the only one that can pull a permit to do a job.
And so when Michael stopped working for your business and was still allowed to use their truck, was that a personal decision you made?
He was allowed to use the truck in case there was a service call that he could jump on and respond to and make extra money, because he was trying to save up extra money to buy a truck.
Would those calls be through your business, or would he
Right.
get them on his own?
No, they come through my business, my phone.
And at some point after he stopped working for you on a regular basis, you said that was towards the end of 2019.
Yeah.
Did you take the custody of the truck back?
I did.
Is now a good place to break?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sirs, I'm going to send you off to lunch. I'll see you back at about 2 o'clock. I do have a list at 1:45, so if it's a few minutes after 2 o'clock, it's just because I'm handling other matters.
Court, all rise for the jury, suspension notebooks on the chair.
I'll see counsel at the side of the bench.
I just wanted to say that we are speed trialing.
Thank you. You know that FDR is off. Did you know? Yeah, that FDR is off. Oh, thanks. Do the witness.
We're waiting for the, oh, sorry. We're waiting for the.
Oh, the defendant, sorry. The clinician.
Excuse me, Your Honor, would you like the witness to?
Well, I didn't realize that a defendant wasn't here, and I'd prefer her to be in the room
Okay,
before.
he's just standing right there. I just didn't want the court to think we couldn't find him.
Okay.
Just for the record, Your Honor, we are returning to the matter of Commonwealth versus Christine Ricci. All parties are present in the courtroom.
All right, you can get the jury and we can have the witness back on the stand.
Officer LaRosa. Bring the doors in.
Sorry, just to remind you, you remain under oath. Thank you.
Clerk authorize jury entering. This court's now in session. Be seated, please.
You may proceed, yes.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald, before we took a break, we had talked a little bit about, or you had testified about Michael stopped hanging out with you and your work crew after work to go for drinks, correct?
Yes,
That you made observations of changes in Michael's physical appearance,
yes,
and that you testified that Michael worked less and less for you over a period of time.
correct.
Is that fair to say that that was a progression that occurred over the course of several months in the year 2019 or some other time? Now, one of the last particular times that you saw Michael Ricci, where was that you saw him?
He came to visit my office
Was he by himself or was he with somebody else?
with Christine.
And do you remember about what time of year or in what year that might have occurred?
That was 19 as well, but I think it was maybe, no, it wasn't. It was 20 because Michael was going for his 1-year coin, I believe, with AA.
So to your knowledge, at that time period when they came to your office, he had been well engaged in AA.
Yes,
And at that time when he came to the office, had he still been on the books with your company?
not working, no. I kept him on in case anything ever changed, but there was no financial transactions at all.
And so had it been kind of a surprise that they showed up at your office?
Very much so, yep. I saw them from outside the window and took a phone call.
Now, when Michael Ricci came into your office, did you have the occasion to make observations of his physical appearance when he came into your office?
Yes, I did.
And what did he look like as far as his physical appearance went during that visit?
He looked tired. He was hunched over. And I literally thought he worked all night or something because he looked like that. But instead, he was just very,
Was that the same Michael Ricci that you had known over the 40 years of your friendship?
absolutely not.
And so how about the defendant? What was your observations of her demeanor when she came into the office to speak with you that day?
She was pretty busy as far as telling me how things were going, catching me up on things with AA and how she's going now.
But as far as like the tone of how she was talking to you, was it,
Started out okay.
okay, so was it a conversational tone?
In the beginning, it was.
And at some point when the two were ready to leave, did the tone or your observations of the defendant's demeanor change?
Yes.
At what point did you see the change?
Just as we were kind of getting up to go out, they might have been in there a half hour. And as they were getting up to leave, because I mean, it was during business hours as well, they were leaving the door. My office is on a second floor in a joint area where there's a lot of other offices. As my door opened, Christine went into, she had some
Only his
things to say aloud.
observations, Your Honor.
Yes, just your observations.
My observations, okay. She started screaming.
Okay. And so was that a marked change from how she had been when she was talking to you inside the office?
Night and day.
And at that point, had she already stepped out of the door of your office?
In the threshold, basically on her way out.
And are there other businesses around where your business is located in Pembroke?
Yes, there are multiple.
And did she continue to yell as she went outside?
Yes, she did.
And how long did that go on for?
It was probably about 5 minutes worth of disengagement from my office to downstairs to leave.
And that entire time when when they went out of your office downstairs to leave, was she yelling the whole time?
I asked her to please be quiet. It's a place of business. and people don't want to hear it. And we had some exchanges back and forth. Mike never said a word. They went down the stairs and then they finally left. Yes.
And was that the last time you actually saw Michael Ricci?
In person, yes. He drove by. We might have waved a few times in the city. That's about it.
After that point, when they came to your office, did you have the ability to call him?
No, I did not. The phone number was gone. It was no longer a working phone number.
Did you have the occasion to go to the Ricci household after that?
His younger son, his middle son, Michael Jr., worked with me and for me quite a bit. So I also knew that it wasn't probably a good idea to go by the house.
I would object and ask to strike that.
I strike the last as non-responsive.
Do you recall the next time you spoke to Michael Ricci Sr.?
I do.
And is it fair to say that he called you?
100%.
And were you surprised by his call?
Yes, I didn't recognize the number. I have a service line, so I have to take every phone call no matter what time of night or day. So I answered the phone and not knowing who it was, and it ended up being Mike. Yes.
And as a result, not saying what the conversation was, but as a result of your brief conversation with him, did you make a phone call?
I did.
And who did you call?
Christine.
And when you called Christine on the phone, well, first off, do you know in relation to that office visit, that last time you saw them, how long it was when you got this out of the blue phone call from Michael Sr.?
Maybe a month after. It was towards Christmas. I know that time of year.
Okay. And when you got on the phone with the defendant, with Christine, what was her tone on the phone call?
Very angry, unhinged.
Did you?
Objection. Move to strike the last statement of the witness.
I strike the characterization. She was very angry.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, is the angry stand in the
Angry stands, the characterization does not.
Thank you. Now, when you were speaking with Christine, did you learn where she was trying to go?
I did.
And did you have a conversation with her about where she was trying to go?
I did.
And do you know who she was trying to find or who she was trying to talk to?
She did tell me.
Who was the person she was trying to talk to?
Janine, which
Were you familiar with the name Janine?
I did. I do know. Yes.
Do you know a woman by the name of Janine Bouchard?
Yes.
And did you know her to be an individual that Michael had a brief affair with?
Didn't know it was an affair.
Or that he had some sort of relationship or friendship with? Now, during this conversation where you learned that Christine, the defendant, was trying to go to Janine's house, what was her tone during the course of that conversation?
Very angry. Very, very angry.
And what were you doing to try to remedy the situation?
Well, I had her on the phone and I had her on speakerphone because it was kind of late at night. And, you know,
Were you at home when you took the phone call?
My wife's right next to me. Yes. So I put it on speakerphone so my wife could hear it. And then I told her maybe get Pembroke because I didn't know what town it was. I was trying to narrow down what town she was in. I was going to tell my wife to maybe get the police on the phone.
So let me just stop you there. When you're on the phone with Christine, are you asking her a series of questions to try to figure out where she might be?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, sorry.
And so are you able to determine that she's in Pembroke?
Yes,
And you live in Pembroke?
I do.
Now, throughout the course of this conversation, do you continue to ask her questions about where exactly in Pembroke she's looking to go?
I was.
Do you do anything to try to help her identify if the area she's describing to you is anywhere near where this woman might live?
1,000%. Absolutely, I did.
And so were you able to change the tone of the defendant's conversation with you by continuing to talk with her?
I did.
Now, at some point, did you find that she was able to calm down and she was no longer talking to you with that angry tone?
One time, yes, and then it went back the other way. Yes.
Okay, and so when it went back the other way, you were still on the phone with her?
Yes, I was.
And did she tell you something she had observed on her drive out in Pembroke that made her change her tone again?
Yes, she did.
And did it have to do with that same woman or something else she observed?
It was at the end of the driveway is what I ascertained from the phone call. I don't know where these people lived. So as she was talking to me, I was trying to figure out where she was just in case we had to do something different. So as she's talking to me, I had my wife's phone Googling the address or street and the name. Because she says, she was.
Was there a
Whatever she
particular,
said.
I'm
I
sorry,
have another question.
Yeah,
was there a particular name on a mailbox
There
that
was.
she relayed to you?
there was. There
And what
a
was the name?
There was two incidents. One was the name Johnson. And she believed that was the person that she was going to see. And as I got her calm and actually laughing, and I thought in a stable conversation, she looked at the next mailbox that had the name Ricci on it, same spelling, R-I-C-C-I.
Okay, and let me ask you a question, if that's okay.
Yeah,
on that.
please. Yeah.
And when she told you that she saw that name on the mailbox, did you again note her tone to change?
Oh, yeah. Yes, very much so.
And so what was her tone at that point when she told you whose name was on the mailbox?
She screamed that.
Well, not what she said.
No, I'm sorry. Well, she was yelling to me, so I was trying to understand what she was saying.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I said that, but that's how it was really loud is what I'm saying was the change.
So she is now yelling and loud again.
Yes,
After you had previously got her to calm down.
yes.
And so after she started yelling, did you again try to calm her down?
By asking what set her off, and she said she saw the name Ricci on a mailbox.
Okay, and let me ask you another question first. After she said that she saw that name on the mailbox, you said you were already kind of looking up these addresses to see who might be residing at these locations she's rattling off to you, right?
Correct. We're Googling them up at the same time with my wife's phone. Yes.
And so were you, in your research, able to ascertain that that Ritchie household was not connected to Michael or his family?
None whatsoever. Just unbelievable
It
circumstances.
was a coincidence,
Yes.
you'd say?
Yes.
And when you were able to relay that to her, to the defendant, did she then again calm down?
Yes.
And then did she again get kind of laugh about it?
Laughed it off.
And then was that the end of the conversation?
Promised me she would head home.
Okay. If I could just go back for a second to the office visit that you described. Who would you say spoke most in that visit? Not what they said, but who was talking the most?
Christine spoke almost 95% of the time.
Okay. And it was just, were there other people in your office at that time, or is it just you and Christine and Michael?
It was just me, Christine, and Michael because I think it was going to be a personal moment, so I made sure no one came in.
And when you spoke to Michael that next time, a month later, when he called you out of the blue, not what he said, but what was the tone of his voice when he was talking to you?
He was very worried.
And based on that, you picked up the phone yourself and called the defendant.
Immediately.
I have nothing further.
Cross-examination.
Good afternoon, sir. This event that you talk about happening where you call Christine while she's driving, looking for, as you say, Janine Bouchard's home, you think that happens in 2020 around Christmas time?
I'm trying to remember, sir. There's a lot going on. I don't remember exactly when it was, but I think it was after that we had that event at the office.
So after the conversation that you had, which was right before Michael's 1 year chip.
I think he was working towards his 1 year chip, sir, and it was things he had to do to get done.
Right.
That's
So he was
why
about to have it take his 1 year chip, and this was a step that he needed before then?
It was part of the process, I guess. Yes, that's what I was told.
Right. So You think that was somewhere around September of 2020. That's what you've,
When they come into my office?
yes, that's what you just said on direct.
I believe so, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe so.
So
sir.
this would have been around Christmas time, 2020.
I know it was colder out, so it would be towards the
All
winter.
right, hold on. You gotta give the court reporter the ability to take down what you're saying, so don't talk over each other, please.
Just to go back, you think the conversation where he came to talk to you was just before September 2020?
I believe so.
And you think that the conversation that you had with Christine that you mentioned a few moments ago would have been around Christmas time, 2020?
Could have been. I honestly cannot remember exactly when that happened. I think it might have been earlier because I was in before I moved into my new house. So it would have been maybe a little bit, push it back a little earlier.
Okay. But certainly it was the case when you had that conversation with Christine, she did not know where Janine Johnson lived or Janine Johnson Bouchard lived.
Oh, no, she was parked. She was parked. She wasn't driving. She was parked when I spoke to her on the
But
phone.
one thing that became clear through the context of your conversation was she did not know Janine Bouchard's actual address at that point.
She thought she did. I don't know because I don't know where it is.
Well, no, hold on, sir. You had said that you looked up the address and determined that it was a complete coincidence that the name Johnson was on a mailbox, right?
Asked her where she was when she called me.
Right.
Sir.
And based on your search of the internet, you realized it was a coincidence that the name Johnson was on the mailbox, right?
I didn't say it was a coincidence. I says the residence shows that it's a Johnson who was 74 years old.
So not Janine
nurse,
Johnson, not Janine Johnson, the one that she thought she was going for, right?
I told her it was that's not Janine. I said if that's where you're trying to go, it's some woman like say, I don't know what her name was, but it wasn't Janine.
Okay, so my question to you is, it was clear from the context of your conversation that when that happened, Christine did not know the Janine Johnson that she was looking for's address. That must be clear, right?
I can't say that for sure, sir. She might have, and for all I know,
So
that
in other
could have been her
words, you
grandmother's
think that
house.
it's possible that she knew where Janine Johnson lived and she went to the wrong address on purpose?
That's a hypothetical. How would I know what she's doing, sir? She was erratic and on the phone
Do you
with me.
think that when she said she was going to go to Janine Johnson's home, that she was talking about the Janine Johnson that you knew?
You want to know what she actually said instead of
No,
Janine Johnson?
I'm asking you whether or not you understood that she was going to the Janine Johnson that you knew and not the 74-year-old nurse that you thought was a mistake.
No. She told me, and I
don't
know.
want
I'm
you
trying
to
to tell
tell
you
me.
because she didn't say a name. She didn't say a name. What she said was,
I'm not
I'm
asking you
gonna-
what she said, sir. I'm asking you the person that she was looking for. Is it your understanding that she thought she was going to that person's house?
she made it very clear.
Right. And you made it very clear that she was at the wrong house.
I hoped she was at the wrong house. I wasn't clear because I don't know where Janine really lives. So I tried to de-escalate the situation by telling her it was an older person's house. Go home.
So you made that story up.
No, the internet said she was 74 years old.
Okay. And the Janine Johnson that she was looking for was not 74 years old.
No, she was not.
Okay. So from that, can you infer that at that time she did not know Janine Johnson's actual address?
Objection.
I can't.
Sustained.
You
'Cause
can't conclude that.
You don't answer
I
it.
couldn't. Either way. Sorry about that.
I know you don't know the precise year and time in which Michael stopped working for you, correct?
It's true.
But you do know that it was immediately after he came and had a conversation with you about leaving his family, right? It was shortly thereafter.
After that, yes.
Right. So, and there was only one time that he was going to leave his family as far as you know, correct?
He had the discussion that day.
Right. And that conversation was followed by you learning a little bit after that he got sober, correct?
I did find out he was going to, and yes, he was doing therapy, I believe, yes.
And after the conversation where he told you about getting sober, I'm sorry, about leaving his family, he went home to his family and he took some time off work at MCC, didn't he, for a little while?
Yes.
Try to straighten things out?
Yes,
And that was at your recommendation?
everybody's, yes.
And then after that, he never really came back to work for you after that, right?
He did. He came back for a bit.
For how long?
I'd say over about 60 days worth of back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Maybe a little longer, but it was probably about 60, 90 days.
Do you remember talking in front of the grand jury in this case?
Yep,
That happened about close to 3 years ago.
3 or so years, yes, sir.
Okay. Um, When you testified in front of grand jury, didn't you tell the grand jury that after you had that conversation with Michael, page 7, that was essentially when he stopped working for you?
Well, if he stopped working for me, it was the beginning of the slide downward, yes. It stopped working for me about that point
Okay.
on, but it was a slow
Okay.
decrease in work time.
Okay. You found out almost immediately that he was getting sober, correct? Immediately thereafter? A couple weeks thereafter?
No, I didn't.
Did you find out like a month thereafter? How long was it?
It was months after. I know he was going to therapy, marriage counseling.
Okay.
That's what I knew. Months after that, at a wake, a friend of ours who was in AA mentioned he's seeing Mike and he's doing good there. And I said, that's great. I'm glad.
Okay. So you don't find out for a couple months. He doesn't tell you immediately that he's in AA. You have to find out from another person.
He wasn't around a lot after that, sir.
Okay. So he wasn't working with you that much.
He was
after
working
that.
with me, but he has his own truck. He goes to his jobs, then he goes to the fire department directly after or before, depending on what his shift was. And he would take the truck home in case of service. So it wasn't like we interacted a lot. In fact, he made it a point not to interact a lot.
Okay. You agree with me that by the time he gave back the truck to you, he'd already been not working for you and not coming to MCC working for you for several months. Is that right?
There might have been a day or two in between, but yes, most of the time he was not. His schedule was pretty busy.
So when he gave back the truck, he had already not been working with you for several months.
Like I say, it's a hard timeline for me to say how long it was, but it was over a month.
Over a month. Your understanding was how many months before the conversation at your office did that occur when he gave the truck back?
Once again, it'd be hard for me to nail down that exact date for you, so it's hard for me to figure out what it was, but it was after, obviously it was well after I had the truck back, because they were still doing counseling. And if I remember right, she said
I'm not asking you what she said.
Well, I'm trying to get a track of like what event she was talking about to give you an idea what time frame it was. And she was talking about they did a trip together somewhere or something like that. It was after they went away. So
Would this be the renewal of the marriage vows?
don't know what it was. I wasn't
Did she
there.
tell you about going to Hawaii?
She mentioned that they went to Hawaii.
And so that would have just happened at that point.
Can't say I was trying to catch up on a lot of things when she got to my office that day.
Okay. But she mentioned having come back from Hawaii and she was talking to you about that. And she also talked to you about the fact that he was about to get his 1-year chip.
No, she was mostly talking about herself and doing psychology or some training, and that she was diagnosing Michael as having.
Objection, Your Honor. Non-responsive. I'd ask to strike.
That's why she
Strike.
came.
I will
Everything
strike.
past the no.
She was talking about herself and psychology training. That's it. Everything's stricken after that.
You came to find out somehow during that conversation that he was about to go for his 1-year chip.
Just said he was this is what I was told. Things he had to do to work towards a goal. After the fact, talking to other people in the program, they told me there's steps you take, and that's some of the steps. He made it clear he wanted to like hug it out on the way out and apologize if anything went crazy near the end.
Okay.
At work.
I want to talk to you about that. Did you understand that that was called an amends conversation that he was having with you?
If that's what he was having, that's what it was. I couldn't tell you exactly. It wasn't much conversation.
Okay. But the point is that that conversation happened. The amends conversation happens at your office. That's a couple months after anyway, the return of the truck.
That's your timeline. I mean,
No, I'm asking you.
Once again, I can't pin down the date. So it was after the truck was returned.
Do you think it was a year after, or do you think it was
No,
just a couple
It
months
was-
after?
It was less than a year.
It was less than a year
I
after.
have to say so, yeah, because I couldn't have the truck out without someone working in it that long.
Okay. All right.
Maybe a
Would you
quick-
like to come up and talk to me?
Don't mind me popping in next to Winchester's bat. Something's off with this guy. He's actually doing my head in.
After I understand the limitations of your memory with regard to the timeline, and I just want to establish one thing. You're sure that the moment in which your employment of Michael Ricci started to taper down after the conversation that you had with him about his desire to leave his family, whenever that took place?
I progressively winded down.
And it progressively wound down over the course of maybe, as you say, a couple months. Did I have that right?
It was months. It was months, yeah. I mean, it could have been 6 months. I don't know. Yeah, we work 18, 20-hour days, so we're always out. It's hard. It's hard to judge exactly, but when he did come in, it was not when I was there a lot either. So our interactions just became less.
Okay. But certainly his work for your company began to taper down, coinciding with when you had that conversation with him about leaving his family.
You want to spend more time with the family, yes.
Yep. As you said a moment ago, you and Michael were extremely close friends. You grew up together.
Yes, sir.
You spent time together throughout your entire adult life, all the way up until whenever it was that you had that conversation about him leaving his family, correct?
Right. Yes, sir.
After that, your relationship, as you say, changed.
I don't think the relationship changed. It's just the circumstances changed.
Well, the relationship changed in the sense that you saw him a lot less.
Absolutely.
And over the course of a couple months or a few months, he stopped working for you altogether.
It's true.
And whatever else your thoughts were, you clearly put the blame on Christine for that decision. No?
You put the
Objection.
blame on anybody.
Objection.
I'll let his answer stand.
At the time that Michael left your employ, was Michael Jr. already working for you, or was that a few months later?
He was working adjacent to us for another company, sir. And I think he was doing fire alarm at the time, which we coincided with a lot, you know.
Mhm.
Better job, get him some training, keep him busy.
Okay. And at that same time, eventually he did come to work for you, right?
Yeah, not a lot, but he did.
Okay. And during that same time, you knew that he was trying to get into the military and you started spending time with him, didn't you, Michael Jr.?
He was working out at the gym. We got him into the gym and he was trying to beef up a little bit, you know,
And you were talking to him a lot at that time.
much as I could.
Yep. And it was during this time that you found out that Michael was in Alcoholics Anonymous, isn't that right?
Yeah, I don't think it was from him. I think I knew about the counseling through him. There was a lot of counseling going on, like whether it's family counseling or marriage counseling, whatever. I tried to keep myself out of it, keep everybody happy.
Okay. Did you hear at this time that Michael was claiming to have sort of broad-based memory issues for a period of
Objection.
time in 2018?
Michael Jr., or Michael Sr.?
Michael
Objection.
Senior.
Basis.
Hearsay. Multiple levels of hearsay, actually.
So
I'm not offering for its truth. It's the same thing.
I'll see you at the side of the bench.
Based memory issues with Mike. During your conversations with Michael Senior during this time, did he ever tell you that he was having broad-based memory issues from 2018 that he couldn't remember months at a time?
No, sir.
Okay. You mentioned that at your business on Thursdays, it was a tradition to go across the street and get a couple of beers. You called them Thursday. Is that what you called it?
Well, it was actually with another guy that I used to do it with, an old friend of mine, but the guys would kind of smooch over and try to get free food off of me. That's what we used to do.
So you guys would go over drinking on Thursdays. And you didn't go,
Not everybody drank, but we'd go over and get food.
okay, at a bar.
Yeah, it was a pizzeria and bar, yes,
Yeah, the British Beer Works.
right across the street. Yeah.
Okay. And would the guys, when you would hang out and have those talks about the problems of the world that you described earlier, would that be in the bar area or would that be at a table where you get pizza?
No, we'd sit at the bar. We'd never had a table. There's usually 5 guys or 6 guys or 7 guys from work.
So you're sitting at the bar.
We'd probably sit at the bar, yes.
And drinks were ordered during that time?
If someone was having a beer with their pizza or a soda with their pizza, it worked both
Okay.
ways. Not everybody was
Okay.
over 21.
Would you always get a drink when you went to the bar with the guys on Thursday?
Not always. We have a service company, so some guys have to maintain.
Okay. Other than the Thursdays that you would go over to the BBC, there were other days where the other employees would also go when you didn't attend. Isn't that right?
I'm sure they did a lot of things I don't know about
Okay.
on days they wanted to, yeah.
Right. When you would hang around with Michael outside of work,
Senior?
yes, Michael Senior, would it often be the case that you guys would have a couple of beers when you would hang around?
What's the time reference you're speaking of?
I'm talking about prior to when he told you he was leaving his family, when you were hanging around with him a lot.
On occasion, but we were the older guys, so
Mhm.
it was not as easy as it used to be.
Mhm.
We always had to work.
Mhm.
So if we did, we'd have maybe a lunch or a pizza or a burger.
Mhm.
Pretty much that was it. We both had things to do afterwards.
Right. You guys would go fishing together, wouldn't you?
Used to,
And when you would fish, you would drink, right? Beer.
on occasion.
Yeah.
Depending if it was we were driving the boat or someone else was driving the boat. But we
Okay.
might have a few beers after lunch with a burger. Or
Whoever wasn't driving the boat would drink beers.
sometimes not always beer either. Sometimes it's coffee. You know.
And when you would go over to his house, oftentimes alcohol would be served.
I think everything was served, sir. I personally brought more sodas and juice boxes to that house and beers than anything. Yeah. Anytime with a cookout.
it's fair to say that a lot of the time that you spent outside the home with Michael, Michael would be in a circumstance in which drinking would be occurring by the people around him, right? That was part of his social life.
No, I wouldn't say that.
You wouldn't say that.
No, I wouldn't.
You did not think that when Michael got sober that drinking was a big part of his social life.
No, I think he was trying to save his marriage. And if that meant taking a sacrifice or changing his ways or dedicating more time, that's what he was doing.
So
That's my personal belief.
So your personal belief was that Michael's saying that he was an alcoholic, that was something that he said to sort of keep Christine off his back?
Say it to me.
He didn't say it to you.
Say it to me. He
And does that
apologized.
mean that you felt that he wasn't telling the truth when he would say that he was an alcoholic?
Hang on again. You're saying that Michael said to me he was an alcoholic, and
What I'm asking you is, he went to AA, correct?
I found out he was going to AA.
Yeah, yeah. And you found out that he was working the steps of AA, correct?
He was working his way through, I believe, yes.
He was going to AA meetings every day,
I don't
correct?
know about every day. I know he's going to therapy. I couldn't tell you what his schedule was.
Okay. You understand?
Counseling, I mean. I
Okay.
know they're doing marriage counseling.
Okay. Was he doing therapy on his own as well?
I don't know. I know that there was just counseling. That's what I was told, therapy and counseling. So I don't know what the family's try. I tried not to
Okay.
delve into that with him. It was his personal life.
Okay. So you didn't ask any questions with regard to therapy and counseling, but you did know that he was going to AA.
I did find out he was going to AA, yes.
And is it your understanding that part of AA is standing up and saying, I'm an alcoholic?
Never been AA, sir. So I'm going off of third-party information. And after the fact, people told me it might be one of his steps making towards his one-year coin.
Okay. So based on what you knew, he was going to AA, he was working his steps. Do you know if he had a sponsor?
I have no idea, sir. Like I
Okay.
said, I literally knew him as my best friend, and I did not want to make him uncomfortable talking. So anything he wanted to talk to me about, I wanted to let that happen.
But you
And
had,
pry.
but you had skepticism as personally, you had skepticism that he was an alcoholic.
Who said I had skepticism that he was?
I'm asking you, you had skepticism that he was an alcoholic, didn't you?
No, I didn't have a feeling either way.
Didn't you say that this was something that he had to tell his wife in order to sort of smooth things over? Or did I misunderstand that?
When did you hear me say that?
Just a few moments ago, sir.
No, I don't think I said that. I think I said he was going to steps to do things to make the home life better. And I knew that was marriage counseling and couples therapy or whatever that was. If the AA thing came in, that was their decision at home. I mean, I know that they both were drinking, so maybe they both decided not to drink and move on, which was a good idea.
You felt that was a good idea.
If that's what made them get through the marriage, I think anything's a good idea.
But you had skepticism as to whether Michael was an alcoholic.
I don't like when you're saying I have skepticism about Michael being an alcoholic. I don't have a feeling either way about Michael. It's like me saying he was or he wasn't. Who are we to diagnose somebody?
You agree with me that when he came to have that meeting with you at his office, you didn't get any notice that he was coming, correct?
You're talking about the one at my office?
Yes.
And he came, which meeting? When he was with Christine or when he came alone, sir?
I'll talk about the one where he came alone before. That was like more than a year or more before that, right?
He called me, asked if I could meet him at the office. I think it might have been an off day, maybe a Saturday or something like that.
This is
If that
when he
sounds
wanted to
right.
tell you about him maybe leaving his family.
He did. He wanted to talk about some personal issues. And he said if I had a couple of minutes to come by the office, he'd like to talk. So I did. I lived 10 minutes from the office, so I shot over.
Okay. Now, when you had that conversation with him and sat down at his request, did you have any indication that this was coming in any way?
Nope.
Wasn't there an event in which you said a moment ago that you have GPS on all your cars, correct? All your trucks?
Yeah.
Wasn't there an event earlier that very week in which you noticed that your work truck that he was using was at an address in Pembroke overnight?
I don't recall that, sir. The only time I would use a GPS, honestly, is if they was out and I had to know where they were in the city so I could relocate the guys to another service call. It was me kind of keeping an eye on it. And then I had, I think I had an insurance discount because we had GPS in trucks.
So you never remember having a conversation with him about Janine Bouchard before the conversation in which he called you and said, let's meet at the office. I want to talk to you about something.
I remember having a conversation with all my guys about the trucks because we had another employee make a very bad move in a truck and got into an accident. And I was extremely worried about someone having the vehicles and getting into an accident on unofficial duty and what the parameters were. So each guy I had to sit down with and make him read the insurance work on driving the truck, company truck.
Okay. When you sat down to have your conversation with Michael that he requested at his office,
My office.
that was the first you'd ever heard about his plan that he might be leaving his family?
100%. He didn't say about leaving a family. He said about separating from Christine. He made it very clear he didn't want to leave his family.
Well, was it your understanding that he was going to be leaving the marital home?
I don't think he had really a good plan at all. Actually, that was the whole conversation. I think he was throwing it out there at the wall and saying, and I didn't know it was that bad at home. So I didn't really, it kind of hit me. I was surprised myself.
Okay. Was this sort of like, you better think this over kind of conversation from your perspective?
I did what I hoped someone would do for me. Sit down and talk about it and lay out some scenarios and make you think real hard about making a decision.
Because you wanted to encourage him to maybe stay at the family home, or did you not take a position in that regard?
I basically said I'm going to back him like I've always done. He's been my brother and he's my family. But he also knew that I told him forever I'd take care of his family, just like two friends would do.
Mm-hmm.
So of course I was looking after the benefit of the kids and them, but mostly what the effect would be on the kids. And that was our conversation.
It was clear through that conversation that he had no idea where he was going to be sleeping that night, right?
I did try to put some reality into the situation, saying if this is where we're going to go, just understand you're going to have a lot of steps ahead of you. Like, we have to think, what are you going to do? You're going to be able to stay home? Are you going to have to live somewhere else? Firehouse, the shifts, we try to lay down the plus and minuses of everything when we spoke.
Did you, in your conversation with him, learn about Janine Bouchard at that point, or did you not learn about her at that point?
No, it wasn't. The conversation was because I asked him some pretty blunt questions, and I got some pretty blunt answers. There was a lot going on between these two that I didn't know about, and I was a little uncomfortable, to tell you the truth, listening to it.
But my question to you is that you didn't find out about Janine Bouchard during this conversation?
No.
Okay. Did you at some point find out about Janine Bouchard?
Yeah, it was a conversation that we just previously spoke about when I had her on the phone.
That was the first time you'd ever heard about Janine Bouchard?
That's when I knew it was more than just a rumor.
Before that, you had heard rumors?
Not much, just enough that I hear something and I don't hear. I don't pay attention. Like I say, I stay out of people's lives and their businesses. But I did hear things, and whether you believe it or not, who knows?
Okay. Did you ever talk to Michael about the rumors, or no?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I think everybody knew that. Tried, like I said, I had Michael Jr., Sophia as a goddaughter, and others. We knew there was some.
I'm sorry, sir. There's no. Okay, got it. Do you remember that the conversation that you had with Michael about leaving his family was about maybe 2 months or so after you yourself got married?
I got married in August, so anniversary was September, right? September. So it would be in September, I believe.
Okay. The same year you got married, right?
Yeah.
Right. You got married in 2018, did you, sir?
I believe so. Or was that a year after that? I can't remember. Because we were in August, we got married, and if that was a year later or a month later, I couldn't tell you.
So it could have been a month later.
Could have been a year and a month later.
Now, when Michael worked for you, he not only drove a work truck, but he also had a work cell phone that you paid for, didn't he?
Yes, I paid for everybody's work phones.
Right. And after he stopped working for you, just like he got his own truck, he got his own cell phone, right?
I believe he was no longer asked to talk to me.
I'm asking you whether or not he stopped using the company cell phone sometime after he stopped working for you.
A little bit before that, actually, it stopped being answered, yes.
Okay. Now, with regard to the conversation, that second conversation that you had with Michael when he showed up at the office with Christine,
With Christine, yeah.
did he tell you that he was there to say sorry for some things?
He didn't say much at all until the very end.
Okay. Do you remember telling him that you didn't need an apology for anything?
He did say that.
Right. You understand that, for example, in Alcoholics Anonymous, someone could need to make amends for themselves and not just for the person that they're saying sorry to, right?
You assume I understand the process.
I'm asking you.
I don't. I didn't know, and I still don't know.
Okay.
I just told him he didn't have to apologize to me for anything. He's my
Right.
best friend.
Right. Did it occur to you that someone who was struggling with alcoholism might have shame about things they did when they were drinking?
Did not occur to me because I have the same answer again. A brother doesn't have to apologize to me.
Okay. But do you understand that he may have felt it was necessary to apologize to you, even if you didn't want to receive an apology?
In
Objection.
hindsight, that's easy to say.
Sustained.
Throughout the entire time that he was making this apology, you were telling him, no need to apologize to me, right?
You're making it sound like it was a long apology. It was at the very end before they walked out the door. It was a 2-minute conversation. It's the only time Mike looked up from being hunched over and spoke.
And he said he was sorry.
He actually just got up and like this, like he wanted a hug.
Did he have some prepared words to speak to you? Is it your testimony today that you never spoke with, that you never expressed skepticism over whether Michael Sr. was an alcoholic?
Objection.
We've covered this ground. Next question.
Well, in order to move on, I need to just get a confirmation on that.
I listened to her, so you.
No, I understand. So my question, I guess, is for my next question, do I understand correctly that you never talked to Michael Sr. about your skepticism with regard to his alcoholism?
You're saying that again. I don't understand why you're saying my skepticism of Michael and his alcoholism. Like, you're going to have to make this a little more clear. You're saying that I was a skeptic of him,
Well, didn't you
or
tell
I'm not a
grand,
skeptic of him. Like,
well, didn't you tell grand jury that you all he did was drink beer and you drank scotch?
no, I did not say all he drank was beer and I drank scotch. I said when we had a drink, if
Yeah.
we went out, I wasn't a big beer drinker. I would have a scotch. So I wasn't around all the guys on the other side. I had my own little thing, my one and out.
So you're not saying that Michael only drank beer?
I'm saying Michael preferred beer and I preferred a scotch. That was what I said. That's how it was.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Page 10. Is it your testimony, sir, that you never expressed an opinion that Mike was a heavy drinker?
I mean, he had beers. He could have a bunch of beers. I had a scotch. That's, if we were on his backyard having a grill, it'd be the same way.
Do you remember being asked during grand jury, did you know Michael to be a heavy drinker? Do you remember being asked that question?
No, I don't.
Okay, may I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
I'll show you the transcript.
Yep.
Recognize your name there?
Yeah.
Turning to page number 10. You were asked,
Where?
did you know Michael to be a heavy drinker? Did I read that correctly?
Yeah.
No, we would have beer together, you know, like Thirsty Thursday, we called it, like
Yeah.
after work.
Yeah.
We'd have like an informal argument session where we talk about work and, you know, solve some of the world's problems over a 6-pack of beer, that kind of stuff. And did you know of Michael to be into hard liquor or anything else? And you said, no. In fact, it was the opposite. Because he would always sit down and I would always sit down and have a good scotch. And these guys would always, you know, have beers, correct?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And you said that because your point was, you didn't think Michael was a heavy drinker because all he did was drink beer.
That's not what I said.
That's not what you meant to say?
No, you're putting words in my mouth. Mike was a heavy drinker because he had beers. Mike decided to have beer. Some days he would have a Coke. Some days he have a ginger ale. But if we were out to have a taste or a drink, Mike would have a beer. He only had beers. I had, like I said, usually a taste of scotch.
Okay. Nothing further.
Redirect.
Briefly. Mr. McDonald,
I think we're gonna have to cut redirect and catch up on this tomorrow because there's still like an hour. I think it's an hour 40 or something, and I need to get to bed. And this guy is just riling me up. So I will see you guys tomorrow. I'll start at 1 my time, so the usual time, and play catch up then. So just keep an eye out for that notification if you even get one. And thank you for hanging out. Save grab for tomorrow. Exactly. Let's have the bad mood in the middle of the day, not at the end of the day. I want to go watch like some random TikTok drama or something now. 7 a.m. Eastern time is when I'll be back. I'm gonna go watch like something about, I don't know, TikTok is fighting over jewelry or something. Avoid this man, how he's making me feel currently. See you then. Good night.